The next question we need to consider is, what does Enterprise Vault do? Well, fundamentally, of course, it's an archiving product. But what do we mean by that? Well, it archives unstructured data, primarily emails and files. It runs on a schedule, so generally it's not a continuous process, although there are types of archiving that do run continuously. It runs according to archiving policies that determine what is going to be archived and when it's going to be archived. And finally, it stores the item in Enterprise Vault storage. So what target systems does Enterprise Vault support? Well, it supports Microsoft Exchange, IBM Domino, Microsoft SharePoint Server, and Windows file servers and other file servers as well. On the target systems, when an item has been archived, it deletes the original item. And of course, the reason for doing this is so that it can release storage on the target system. It also creates a shortcut. Now, the reason for creating a shortcut is to give the user seamless access to the archived item even after it's been archived. So although the icon will change, depending on email or file systems, but when they double click that, the actual user experience will be the same. Enterprise Vault also does something called single instance storage. What this means is that when an email is archived, in this case it's an email with a PDF attachment, it will check whether that file has been archived before, and it does it by passing it through what we call something called a fingerprint engine, where it creates a hash of the attachment and checks whether that hash already exists in something called the fingerprint database. If the fingerprint doesn't exist, then it will store the item in Enterprise Vault storage. If the fingerprint does exist, it means it stored it before and it doesn't need to store it again. The real benefit of single instance storage is that the amount of stuff we're actually storing in Enterprise Vault won't be as large, because when we're archiving the same file multiple times, we only actually archive it once. Every single item that's archived within Enterprise Vault is assigned a retention category. This is the theoretical amount of time that we're going to keep that item for. And if the administrator also enables something called expiry, then the items can be expired at the end of that retention period. So if we assign an item to a retention category of 5 years and expiry is on, then at the end of that 5-year period, that email would be deleted from Enterprise Vault. Another real benefit of Enterprise Vault is that it does indexing. So when items are stored by Enterprise Vault, the storage process extracts the text from documents like PDF files, Word documents, and so on. It's that text that's then indexed along with the metadata. This enables users to be able to search for items easily. Another thing to consider with Enterprise Vault is the user experience. Archived items can be opened seamlessly. So what I mean by that is that when we archive an item, we create a shortcut. When we double click that shortcut within, for instance, Outlook, we will then see the original item, and the user experience is exactly the same if the item wasn't archived. Enterprise Vault supports a wide variety of different clients. So Outlook's the main client, it supports Outlook Web App, it supports other clients as well. Also, users can search for items, so they can very quickly find archived items. What I'm going to do now is give you a demonstration of that user experience, how users interact with Enterprise Vault. So let's have a look at the user experience for Enterprise Vault. I'm logged on as a user called Darren Geyer, and there are a couple of indications straight away that Enterprise Vault is enabled for this user. The first one is that if you look up on the menu here, I've got an Enterprise Vault menu. So this gives me links to the EV Search client and other options like storing individual items, restoring items, and so on. The other one is that the emails have got this icon. This is what we call a shortcut, which indicates that the item has been archived. And if I double click that item, you'll notice that it retrieves the item. So this is an in-memory retrieval. The item doesn't come back to the Exchange server, it just comes back in memory. So once I close this window down, the item's gone away again. You can see the contents of the shortcut. So the administrators decided to put in this banner in the content of the shortcut to indicate to the user that the item has been archived. That's a good idea to do, in addition to having the shortcut icon. So the user can select items to archive themselves if the administrator allows it. So I've selected this item and I can then click this store button, and what that'll do is put a request to the Enterprise Vault server to store it. Now you'll notice that the icon is changed, not to a shortcut straight away, to what we call a pending item. So this is now waiting to be archived, and sometimes, depending on how you've configured your Enterprise Vault server, it might take up to 24 hours for that to turn into a shortcut, because this is what we call a safety copy, so it's waiting for Enterprise Vault to be backed up. In this particular case, I haven't got that safety copy setting on, so it's going to change it into a shortcut straight away. Obviously, it takes a minute or two to archive it. So you'll notice that the item is now changed into a shortcut, and that in the preview pane it indicates the message has been archived. If I double click that, it retrieves the item as before. Another way of interacting with Enterprise Vault is to use the Enterprise Vault search client. So I get access to that by clicking Search Vaults here. This is actually really a web page that's displayed within Outlook. And there are two ways of interacting with it. One is to see this hierarchical view. So you can see all the folders in your archive and you'll see the individual items down here. Or another way is obviously to type in a search request. You type in that request and you can see the results, and it has hit highlighting indicating the words that you've searched for. The final way I want to talk about is something called Virtual Vault. So on the left-hand navigator at the top here we've got the user's mailbox, but at the bottom we've got this thing called Vault Darren Geyer, and that's what we call Virtual Vault. So if I click on Inbox here, these are items that are in something called Vault Cache, which is like a local copy of your archive, and Virtual Vault displays them using this PST-like interface. The reason why they don't have shortcuts is because they are actually the full items. And this is a different way of interacting with Enterprise Vault, which is that you don't have shortcuts within your inbox, but instead use Virtual Vault to interact with your archived items. So you have your live data at the top, and then at the bottom you have your archived data. And from here I can reply and forward and so on, just in the normal way. So that's a really good way as an alternative to shortcuts. So hopefully that's given you a little idea of the user experience with Enterprise Vault.